We're live on YouTube. Um,
Amazing.
yes, sir. All right, gonna get us connected here with Facebook. So give us a moment, folks.
Is your flag upside down or is that just my camera?
It is upside down. Yep.
Thing?
What's up?
Is that an anarchy thing?
No. So I mean, believe it or not, just from a military perspective, an upside down flag. All troops wear upside down flags on their uniforms, and it means a nation in distress. And
Okay.
I've always said to myself and said to others that we've been the country's been in distress for a long time, and we're
Yeah.
constantly in distress. Um, so yeah,
Oh
that's the
wow. I
meaning.
just learned.
Yeah. All right. So we're live on Facebook now too. All right. What's up, Facebook? Um, I'm gonna get us connected here
Great.
with our chat so we could see what's going on here. Um,
Oh, did you hear about the news that Edward Snowden said about cryptocurrency or Bitcoin in particular? Oh,
I did.
did you hear about the news that Edward Snowden said about
Oops.
currency or Bitcoin in particular? Oh,
I
did you?
did. Oh my goodness. All right. We had some
What's going
double
on here?
we had some double playback there. All right. Cool. Forgive me, guys. I'm just trying to get chat set up here so we could get going on this discussion. We're almost there. We're almost there.
Let's see what I can pull up here.
Cool. All right, man. So perfect, perfect. All right, my man. So you wanted to get together and chat about some things. I know. Yeah. You just been. And you were just giving me a little bit of a rundown of what some of the stuff that you were researching, and yeah, definitely interested. Has to do with cryptos. I think education is critical at this moment. And yeah, Let us know what you've been finding, man.
Yeah,
Hey,
sure.
Adriana.
So, I mean, but yeah, man, I've just been researching for days, losing sleep over this. And I guess the question I was trying to figure out, and me and my friends we were trying to figure out, yo, how do you value? Obviously, you can't value them like your typical like stocks or typical companies like that, where you use things like capital discounted cash flow analysis and a whole bunch of other things. We were trying to figure out was, yeah, how do you value these things? And so one of the couple of the things that we found is, or a couple of the trends that we found in crypto is obviously of hype, and then you have died down. But a couple of the things that some people don't realize is like basically when you have these hype runs, like before this, we were talking about the recent where prices went up to around like $20,000, and then we saw a crash. I want to say December 17th, and even till now, we're still in the bear market. And I guess what I was trying to say before this was like happens there's kind of a natural order to these things, if that makes sense. So some of the things that I've been reading are there's a book called Technological Revolutions and Financial Capital by this woman named Carlotta Perez. There's scholarly articles on economics and things like that. And I've just been having these discussions with D level, a couple of engineer guys, computer science people too, and we kind of came to the conclusion that okay, so for crypto assets, in particular for Bitcoin, its purpose of being peer-to-peer cash, what has to happen is this thing needs to be in the trillions in terms of market cap,
Yep.
not just like obviously 100 billion or whatever. That's nice, but this thing needs to be in the trillions too, because one of the things we have to consider the volatility of this thing. Like how does the volatility of this thing drop? Lots of people have been saying that for a while, and before I continue on with, I guess, thing.
Shit, you cut out there, man. I didn't catch that
I cut
last part.
out.
Yeah, yeah.
Said like want to talk about ideas on volatility. How do we get volatility down? What do you think?
Yeah, yeah. So, I think you're absolutely right. And in saying that we need to be in the trillions of dollars as far as market cap. And for those who are not familiar with market cap, it's basically how much money, or in this case, fiat currencies or other types of currencies have flooded into these cryptocurrencies. How much money is sitting there, right? Um, and right now it's something like maybe 300, 400 billion. And Norman made a good point. It needs to be much, much greater. I mean, the wealth of the globe is something like, I mean, I don't even know. There's been so many, guesses that have
So
been made, but it's some, definitely over 50 trillion. Let's just say that. That's a nice, safe, conservative number. Unless you have a
yeah, can I
number.
can I jump in?
Yeah, absolutely.
So based off of what I've read, people have been saying it's somewhere between 100 and
Okay.
300 trillion.
Yep. Okay. Yep. And I've heard 100. And I haven't done my personal research on it or anything like that. So um, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, cryptocurrencies right now are not even at half $1 trillion, right? Um, and we need to get it over $1 trillion into the tens of trillions. And that's where we're going to see a lot less volatility. But you mentioned something earlier, and I think it's important, like to note this too. Is 2017 was like the ICO craze. This is
Yeah,
where tons of startups essentially, and what an ICO is, for those who don't know, is an initial coin offering. It's basically a crowdfunding of a startup, if you will. Um, so I think in 2017 there was something like $2 billion raised in ICOs.
2.5 billion.
So 2.5 billion, which is insane. And it's a new way of generating revenue and trying to get something kickstarted. So it's good in a way, although we saw tons of stuff, tons of, and I think we're going to get into this, tons of utility that didn't make sense. A lot of stuff came out, a lot of scams. A lot of people lost a ton of cash. A lot of these companies have dropped off. A lot more still have to drop off. Um,
Speaking, you mind if I interject for a bit?
no, go for it, man.
So speaking of dropping off, what a lot of people don't understand is a lot of these projects are going to fail. So there was actually a study done in a Deloitte report, and so they looked at, I think, like 26,000 crypto startups. I forget from what year. I think it had to be from like either 2016 or 2015 until now. They looked at 26,000 crypto startups that were dealing with it, and from when they started up, only from when they started up till today, the report was actually released yesterday. I want to say, only 8% are still here.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
damn. Okay, so I haven't seen any numbers on that. That's crazy though. See that man, that's crazy. And we're still gonna see a lot more of that. Although with the SEC interjecting, you might have people wanting to kick off an ICO a little bit more reluctant to do that, and but who knows? But we
yeah.
we have a question here from Cindy. And somebody, she's a local here, progressive, awesome person. So she asks, how much is Bitcoin worth right now, today? How much
Let's
has it
let's
gone down
let's,
this year? So you
let's
want to?
check.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's check it out. So um, real time numbers. So if you guys go
Yeah,
to Coin Market Cap, that's typically where I go to get numbers. Although there've been there've been some like articles put out that have been kind of discrediting CoinMarketCap because of their numbers are kind of I guess reflecting stuff that shouldn't be there. And I haven't read into that too
yeah.
much.
Yeah, so I mean, what that article is probably talking about was there was a time where CoinMarketCap included some of the Korean exchanges, and some of the prices of Bitcoin were trading so high on some of the Korean exchanges that we refer to that price difference, that difference between what they were trading on with Korean exchanges and the rest of the world, as the kimchi premium. So basically, what happened one day was CoinMarketCap just well, they didn't delist all the Korean exchanges. What they did was they removed those Korean exchanges from their fact
I remember
from
that.
their calculations when determining price.
Yep.
And
Now,
so
what
a
does
lot
that
of people,
do? Yeah, so I think emotionally, it I guess emotionally it drives down the price because just at face value it like, at least to me, this is how I guess I interpret it. Yeah, it essentially scares them away, right? They a huge chunk of cash that it was once reflected to be the number no longer meets that average. People freak out. They don't know what's going on. Maybe somebody's selling off,
yeah,
and emotionally. A lot of people will then, it triggers like this domino effect of selling off, and
yeah,
this FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, right now Bitcoin's at well, when I checked, 8668, 8,668 bucks. Um, and how low has it gone this year? Um, I mean that's hard to say because
Six thousands.
yeah. So it's okay, yeah. So it's gone down. I think, yeah, almost to I think it almost reached 5,900 in some exchanges, for
Yeah,
about 6 grand.
I want to say 5,900, low 6,000s.
Yep, yep. So that was the lowest it got this year for sure. Yep. Cool. So that's it, man. That's it from chat for now.
Okay, cool. Let me move this out the way. All right, cool. Yeah. So I mean, do you want to? Should I continue?
Yeah. So where were we at? We needed to get what we need to do. I mean, to see less volatility, because that this is one of the things that kind of deters people away from, at least getting involved in cryptos and stuff right now. And I will say, for anybody watching, if you get into cryptocurrencies, at least from my perspective, you're absolutely still an early adopter. So there is a lot of volatility in play. So you got to weigh out what is good for you and what is not. I personally do it from a political kind of protesty
Oh yeah,
perspective, moving
yeah. We
away.
spoke about that.
Yeah, it's my protest against the current financial interest, right, or institutions. So moving away from that is how I take care of it. Is what makes me feel good, and being in charge of your own currency, essentially being your own bank, is incredibly empowering. But
I
yeah,
can
so
say.
yeah, go for it.
Sorry about that. I was gonna say I can say from a personally, like it's made me way more responsible than I've ever been in my entire life. Just like getting into cryptos, having to manage your own crypto assets, like
Sure.
track prices, like figure out everything that's going on, do the research and all that. I can say it's made me into a much more responsible person than just, oh, like, yeah, I just have this money, I'm just gonna spend it and everything.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the things that getting involved into cryptos has done for me is it's increased my like uh, cognizance when it comes to security, setting
Yeah,
up two-factor authentication, just doing a ton of stuff. I mean, not even
yeah,
carrying a lot of our stuff on web wallets or even desktop wallets, but migrating to hardware wallets and shit like that. So
yeah.
yeah. So let's
I
see.
think she asked another question though, discredited. Just curious, do you think the feds will get involved?
And
And I
try to
can't see
manipulate.
anything under that.
Yeah. So then she says, will you think the feds get involved and try to manipulate the Bitcoin market? Um, they hate losing the edge on their fiat currency, no doubt. Yeah. Um, so this is my take on it. I think. I mean, they're slowly trying to get their hands on it, and that's what the SEC, um, and this other the hearing or meeting that just happened not too long ago was really all about. Um, is basically tapping into the whole craze, and trying to figure out what the hell is going on first of all, but taking care of trying to put essential, and I hate to use this word, but regulation, right? Regulating the ICOs. But when you take a step back, uh, we need that in a sense. We don't want BitConnect to come out and have another $1 billion market cap,
Big
and then
Connect X.
yeah, BitConnect X exactly come out, and people are intrigued and interested in it. They invest and they lose houses and cars, and they're in they're in too deep now. So from in and here's like my take on it, and I heard somebody else say that the same exact thing, and maybe we talked about it the last time, but um, I honestly think the whole community is also concerned about that, and if not more concerned than the SEC of actually protecting the consumer. And I personally think that we can figure out how to regulate ourselves organically, without the SEC coming in. Because really, and I think I know where Cindy's coming from, is are they going to try and manipulate it because they don't want anything to take over, the current system? Um, and I could worry about that. I would worry about that, but I know a little. When you dig deep into the technological aspect of it, and its implications, you understand like there's no way that there's no way to manipulate it in such a way that it would be detrimental to the ecosystem. Uh, Personally, I think that. So it's more of a, I guess, political, legislative way to try and regulate the shit. And I think it's going to be really, really hard to do something like that. Really hard. And there's just lots of discussions and conversations that still need to happen. So sorry,
I mean,
I didn't
I
mean
mean,
to go
I
off on a
think
rant there.
no, you're good. You're good. That's the inner anarchist speaking. But I mean, I personally think it's only natural for them to try and regulate it because that's their job, right?
Yeah,
The regulators, it's their job to regulate. I mean, I'd be scared if they weren't trying to do their job, honestly.
sure.
But I mean, I can't speak for the United States, but we've already seen regulators in other countries try and manipulate the price through regulation to do whatever they were trying to do. So there's actually an investigation for insider trading or price manipulation going on in South Korea
Yep.
when the Ministry of Justice made an announcement saying that they were going to try and pass a bill to ban crypto exchanges. And basically, some of the results from that investigation were found that some of the people in the Ministry of Justice knew about this and were selling off any crypto assets they had before this announcement was made. So obviously, once this announcement was made, what happened was we saw a nice little, well, not a nice little correction, but we saw a sharp correction happen.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, like you said before, just FUD going around, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Nobody really knew what to do. But the people who kept their ears to the streets, for example, like if you were following some of the people who are in Korea on Twitter, most people knew that hey, this it's not going to happen. But everybody doesn't live in Korea, South Korea in particular, So from the outside looking in, a lot of people don't understand what's going on in that particular country. They just know that South Korea has a buttload of trading volume that goes into the country when you look at the market. I mean, some of the biggest exchanges
Yep.
in the world are in South Korea. I mean, crypto is so popular to the point South Korea where there was a premium. There's literally a premium when you look at prices or market cap. Well, yeah, prices in South Korea versus like the rest of the world. I,
Yes.
I, I literally remember. I literally remember seeing Bitcoin trading at like 23,000 when it's
Yep.
on, yeah, 23,000 on I think like Huobi when it's like 19,000 on Coinbase.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, yep. So, that's like a $4,000 hike. And there
Yes.
are even bigger spreads, I think, when it was a little bit lower, reaching up to, its peak. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it is a global phenomenon. And I think, people in these other parts of the globe, like they understand what's going on, So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But to add on to what Cindy's saying though is like that's part of the that's part of the big thing that we're starting to see when she says they hate losing their edge on their fiat currency.
Yeah.
So the funny thing about that is like when you look at crypto or Bitcoin in particular, what we're seeing is a separation of what we're seeing is a separation of money and state. And I'm not the first person to say this. I'm probably like the 100,000. Like Antonopoulos says this all the time.
Yep.
This is a literal separation of money and state. So they can try to impose as many regulations as they want. But at the end of the day, what we're dealing with is something that's completely borderless, a borderless currency that no country controls. And because no country controls it, there's only so much you can do in terms of regulation. And then he even argues that it's going to get to a point where like it's disadvantageous for these countries to try and regulate this currency because what's going to happen is some of the countries, and we're already seeing this, like North Korea, are starting to get more and more into cryptos. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw like one of the first countries be like a country like North Korea adopting, Bitcoin is a de facto currency or something like that. Like we're already seeing it being legal
Yeah.
tender in Japan.
As a nation, right? Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is regulation is good, but sometimes it can get to a point where it's economically disadvantageous for them to regulate it,
Yep.
and it would put them at risk of losing their position in the world.
Yeah, and yep, absolutely. So what regulation essentially does, in moments just like this in time, is it stifles or it disrupts innovation. It stops innovation. And exactly what you said, you lose your advantage from a technological revolution, of entrepreneurship, of testing, trial and error on this new technology, trying to you know create new things, whatever, however you want to say it,
Yeah,
and
but
you do lose your position.
and
Absolutely.
and one of the biggest things I've noticed is that a lot of regulation comes from failure. So typically, you have these frenzy phases where everyone's excited, everyone's optimistic. I'll give you an example. Like you said before, BitConnect was top 10 at one point during this frenzy phase where everything was just going up. Everybody was happy. Everyone and their mom was excited about crypto. Then what happened? Literally the second this mini frenzy phase ended, prices crashed. We literally saw BitConnect disappear out of thin air. And then what happened next? You go on YouTube, you see people saying that they lost their life savings in BitConnect. Oh, we need to go to the government to figure out who did this and get these people arrested.
Mm-hmm.
Like we started seeing things like this, and then what happens? People start crying for the government. People start crying for regulation, and people start doubting cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is regulators step in, and then they try to do their job.
Yep, absolutely. And these are what people call, you could label them in such a way, but I think of them as bad actors. I mean, there's no good intention in doing something like that.
Every frenzy is going to have a bad actor. Every
Yes.
every like tech revolution is going to have a bad actor. Like I mean, if we go to the tech, like if we go to the .com bubble, everyone and their mom was opening up a website. How many of those websites do you think were made with good intentions?
Right. Yep. Yep. And
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 then like
that's
what happened after? Sorry about that.
no, you're good. You're good. Again, it's a turnoff for people. They don't want to get involved. They think that it's a scam. They hear everything, on mainstream media. But what they're missing the point of what a true blockchain is trying to do, or a true
Yes.
cryptocurrency is trying to do. Yeah.
I completely agree with that. A lot of people don't understand just exactly what's happening, but that kind of is that's kind of part of the order of things too when you think about it. I mean, look, and I'm starting to like beat a dead horse with these comparisons, but how many people realized that they actually needed the internet when it came out? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I
And
mean,
then
it was a majority of people. Dude, I was just watching this. uh, like this news broadcast show. I forget who it was, maybe ABC, something like that. And the anchors there, they just started a website. And they're trying to say at at NBC.com or whatever. And the people there are like, what is this? What is at?
Yeah, what is
So
what is it? What is a dot com? What is this? What is this symbol? Why would we ever use this thing?
absolutely,
This thing is dumb. This thing is slow. This thing is inefficient. I don't want to have to type in an address to go somewhere.
yep.
Oh, what I can't use the phone when I'm connected to this internet thing because I have to dial in with this thing called dial up. This is completely slow. Oh, it's expensive because now my phone lines are constantly being used.
Yeah.
I can't this is just another bill. There's no usefulness that comes from this. Dude, I could go on for days about this.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's I mean, to me, that's the phase that we're in, right?
Yeah,
And a lot of people don't see any practicality in using it. They don't understand it yet. They just don't, they haven't grasped the entire concept and have this long-term vision of it, which, I think. Staying up all night researching these things and trying to figure out what the hell is going on kind of gets you to do is think
and
about the future
exactly.
implications. Yeah.
Yeah, essentially, I mean, what a lot of people are trying to do is like they're forming these think tanks and they're trying to figure out where things are going so that they can plan accordingly. Because you got to think about it too with things like the internet. I mean, yeah. With things like the internet, once this thing takes over, jobs change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jobs change,
Right.
standards of livings change, and you more or less need to figure out where tech is going, where all this stuff is going, because it's not too long before this thing knocks on your door and you're either unemployed or because you took advantage of what was going on, you get a fat raise or you have an opportunity to start your own business. And I think what we're seeing in crypto is we're seeing the combination of all three.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Or yeah, essentially you're left in the dust, man. And I always pressure my family, and I always try and bring it up whenever I can, about, start your own wallet, you guys. Just get familiar with what's going on. It's not that hard. You don't need to completely invest a ton of cash, but understand the technology, and get familiar with how to use your public keys and receive some funds and stuff like that. Because
Yeah,
yeah, it's gonna get to a point where yeah, absolutely, uh yeah, it's gonna leave you behind,
yeah.
just like the what is it? What generation is it? I don't know. Left in the dust with technology today.
What, baby boomers?
Baby boomers, okay? Baby boomers who don't know how to use a smartphone.
you,
Those who know
you,
how to
you
use
entitled millennial. What do you know about them?
and they don't know how to use a smartphone. It's brand new to them. We're here trying to help them out, but it's just so complex for them to wrap their head around what they actually have access to in the palms of their hand.
Yeah,
Because they've been used to this, rudimentary level of living with
yeah.
really, really basic shit. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about these tech revolutions, based off of what I've been studying, is everything that we look at as like okay, difficult to use, or everything that we kind of maybe not us in particular because we've been in this for some time now, but what like the general population looks at is very difficult to use, eventually becomes the norm in terms of oh, you don't know how to use this thing.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy to think that we're alive in such a time period where we're literally getting to see things like this happen, and it's literally playing out like how it is in this in these books I've been reading to an extent.
Yeah.
Like
So
literally, yeah,
that's like a perfect segue. So, like the stuff that you've been reading and researching, in your view, in what you've read, and how we interpret the world around us, what the hell gives cryptocurrencies their value?
what gives them their value.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
all right, yeah, so
it's high level, and for the people watching and education for educational purposes and all that good
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
so I mean, people might kill me for this. Like a lot of the older people might kill me for this, but if I'm wrong about this, or if you have something different, like let us know because I don't like putting out, false information, stuff like that.
No
So
doubt.
I mean, based off of what I've been studying or my understanding of the research I've been doing is when you have assets, you have three different this is what money is basically. Money is a store of value. It is a medium of exchange, and then it's a unit of account, right?
Hmm.
So before something can become a unit of account is, how we, I guess, measure things, and it's a unit that we measure things by. For example, so your laptop or your computer, or whatever, the unit of account to measure that value is the dollar. Your laptop is worth $600, right?
Hmm.
The next below that one, for something to become a unit of account, it has to become a medium of exchange. So basically, like for example, gold. Gold is one of the most oldest medium of exchanges, the most famous medium of exchange in history. For example, gold coins, stuff like that. Okay, this thing costs 2 gold. That's the unit of account, but the medium of exchange is gold. So basically, a medium of exchange, in I guess layman's terms, is kind of a particular good that everybody can agree upon that can be exchanged for another good, right?
Hmm.
So even before that, like the oldest form of, I guess, any type of financial system is bartering, right?
Hmm.
You have 25 goats. I got like 32 great white sharks. Like, let's trade, right?
Right.
And yeah, I'm a funny person, so I gotta like throw something
No,
outrageous
that
in there.
dude,
But
that's
yeah, you have
perfect. Yeah.
yeah. So I want to trade my great white sharks for your goats. And a lot of the things that uh, a lot of the things that are bad about bartering is like sometimes we run into a coincidence of wants. So um, some people may value my great white sharks as okay, this is a valuable thing, but you don't value it as a valuable thing, right? So that's where this medium of exchange comes into account. It's something that we agree upon that can be exchanged for something else. So instead of me exchanging my great white sharks directly for your goats, we have gold, which is our medium of exchange, and I'm going to give you 26 pieces of gold for your goats, and then in exchange you would give me 7 pieces of gold for my great white sharks or whatever. So
Hmm.
that's the importance of a medium of exchange. And then to go back a little bit, what we have now is, or what we had before, is store value. And a store value can be, I guess, classified as something that is perceived as, I guess, rare, and that rareness is defined by some sense of, okay, this thing is so what I'm looking for,
It's finite.
scarcity.
Yeah.
Yeah, finite scarcity. It's defined by some sense of it being finite and some sense of it being scarce. And then the next thing to add on to that would be like, okay, this thing has to withstand the test of time.
Hmm.
So obviously I can't use eggs as a store of value because my eggs are gonna rot next week. I can't use bacon because if I leave it out for 2 days, it's gonna spoil. So can't use food as a store of value. Uh, then as time went by, people discovered that stores of value could be things like shells and beads, and shells, beads, and stones. So a good example of that would be you can look this up too. It's a really interesting story. So there's this island I think called Yap, right?
Hmm.
And on the island of Yap, what these people were using were these things called rye stones. Hence why you have, and it's funny because if you think about it, okay, rye stones, rye blocks, that
Yep.
cryptocurrency. A lot of people didn't draw those lines, but I drew it. But yeah. So yeah, so you had these things on the island of Yap called the rye stones, and people were using this thing as a currency because on the island of Yap it was very very difficult to find these rye stones because these rye stones on average weighed like 4 tons. They weighed 4 tons, and they weren't natural to that island. So most of the rye stones, which are made out of limestone, were never they don't come from the island of Yap. They come from this isn't Micronesia. They come from some other island in Micronesia. So to get these stones from this island in Micronesia and bring it to the island of Yap was very, very expensive. So you had this sense of scarcity. So a lot of people that's another thing a lot of people don't realize. Like anything that fits these criteria can be used as money. A lot
Hmm.
of people think money has to be paper. Money doesn't even have to be physical. Bitcoin is not physical. Money does not
Right.
have to be physical. It just has to have these properties. So yeah, so these stones, these rye stones, they were scarce because it was very very expensive to get these 4 ton stones in like what like the year like 1300 to the island of Yap. And also basically they acted as a medium of exchange too because the island of Yap was very small. It consisted of maybe like I want to say less than 500 Micronesians. So basically, ownership of the stone was determined in kind of like a town hall setting. So when somebody say I have a Yap stone, right? I
So
mean a rye stone.
they had like an open ledger. Yeah.
Yes, literally they had an open ledger, and everybody on the island knew who owned what stone because when you wanted to make a trade with somebody with the stone, you would announce it to the entire village, and that's how their currency system kind of worked.
Yep.
So now something else that we have to introduce that affects the scarcity is inflation, right? So fast forward a couple hundred years, what happened was European explorers came. I actually forget the guy's name for some reason. I'm real tired right now. I forget the guy's name, but a European explorer came, and this was right around the discovery of dynamite.
Hmm.
So you can kind of put two and two together and figure out what happened. So this European explorer came to the island of Yap, and basically he realized that people were using the rye stones as currency on this island. So what he ended up doing was he went to where the source of the rye stones came from, and because they had dynamite at the time, it was not difficult to mine rye stones anymore because dynamite would create explosions, which would make it easier for you to mine these rocks.
Hmm.
So because of this, he would bring the rocks back to the island of Yap, but something crazy happened. The island of Yap tried to outlaw people from using things like dynamite and whatnot to mine these stones. And because and this is regulation. This is literally quote
Right.
unquote regulation now, right? Trying to protect their currency and stuff. It's really
Right.
interesting. So because they have this regulation now, people on the island got pissed off and they were like, no, we're gonna mine the stones like this now because it's significantly easier to get them. And basically what happened at hyperinflation. The rye stones virtually became useless now because it was so easy to mine it. Hyperinflation came in, the value of the rye stones went to zero, and because of this loss of scarcity, they weren't able to be used as a store of value, a medium of exchange, and a unit of account.
Hmm. So similar situation with so we'll use that analogy and apply it to the
To
current
Bitcoin,
system.
yeah,
Not
yeah.
even
So,
to
so
Bitcoin, just the current system. So fiat, quantitative easing is just another is just a fancy word of saying we're going to print more money out and flood the market. Okay. Um, and what that does for those who don't understand money at this level is it decreases its buying power. There's more of it around, and less people become infatuated with it. They don't even want to deal with it anymore. They find something else that's a little more valuable.
yeah,
Whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Quantitative easing. It's funny how we come up with these words to
Yeah,
to like
it's like our legislation or these bills that pass. We throw a nice little title that the masses can just attach to and say, okay, that's a nice title. I think there's really good stuff within the 300 pages of that bill. So I'm going to say, yeah, it's okay. I agree with that bill. Same thing. It's just a manipulation of syntax to try and get you to think a different way when something
yeah,
completely opposite is happening, which is not
quantitative
good.
easing, quantitative easing, inflation, lobbying, bribery. But
Right. Exactly.
yeah, yeah, exactly though. So I mean, like, let's now that we know what money is. I mean, let's do you want to look at fiat now? Because I know this is like your thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just, there's been, I guess I'm 30 years old, by the way, 31. And I've gotten to a point where, like, I honestly don't even want to look at the current system and think of it as something that is sustainable or even real. To me, it's a fraud. It's fake. It is useless. It's disingenuous. It's ripped a lot of people off. If we talk about these ICOs that are coming out, ripping other people off, BitConnect, blah blah blah, even Ripple. I myself see fiat as an ICO that has completely failed, has never delivered on its promises, ever. And we pay taxes in order to manage infrastructure, give us some decent social programs, blah blah blah. We could go on. So yeah, yeah.
Oh
I
man.
have yeah, I have a particular opinion about the current system, no doubt. And that's why I'm like completely bullish on cryptos and Bitcoin in general, and really a lot of the core projects that have been around for a long, long time, which is I think one of the things that I mean, we were chatting about last night, and that was um, basically reorganizing your portfolio and aiming and being more precise on the long term, right? Stuff that's going to stick around for sure,
Yeah.
instead of speculating on what could be legit and actually produce something of value later.
Yeah. Let me remind me not to piss you off, but uh,
That's
I think
funny.
Cindy asked a question, but yeah, can you guys hit the share button if you're watching this on Facebook? Share, like, comment, all that.
Yeah, no
But
doubt.
yeah,
Absolutely.
Cindy asked the question.
Yeah, so fiat currency is a Ponzi scheme. Agreed? Yeah, I mean, me personally, I have my own opinion on fiat, and it absolutely is a Ponzi scheme. If we look at it in that way, we don't we don't control how much is being put out. We don't know how much is being circulated or printed or this quantitative easing that we were talking.
Quantitatively ease.
Yeah, we don't see these things. We don't have access to the information. Somebody, a state, a government, an entity, an institution is in control of this, and these things fled into banks. These banks then lend out to people. These people then, buy these loans from these banks. And it's a debt-driven society. Like, how can you actually maintain something that is like doomed to fail?
Yeah.
And that's why I love Bitcoin and cryptos because it uses a push transaction or functionality, which all that means is there's no debt ever accrued anywhere. You're only transacting and exchanging something that you have. So yeah, yeah.
Oh man. I mean, and
And I mean, it goes
let's
so much deeper than that. That
yeah.
is just like surface level stuff, just to try and get you to understand, at least where my brain is at making these connections. Yeah, it's a terrible way to try and um, uh, you know, control society. It's a terrible way. It's a terrible way to uh, create this currency that only your nation is able to use. Maybe some other. It's just like I don't like I don't like I don't. So first of all, borders are meaningless to me, right? That's the other cool thing about crypto or Bitcoin. Let's
Borderless.
just use Bitcoin. They're borderless. It doesn't matter where you're at around the globe. You're a human being. You have access to this wallet. You have access to this yeah, exchanging Bitcoin, and you're on a level playing field with everybody else. Well, fiat, these other cryptocurrencies, they don't have that. Not everybody can have bank accounts. They don't have access to this stuff. So when we talk about nations' currencies, those things are really centralized. And when you get into higher levels of government and then geopolitics, then you have sanctions that are messing around with other people's economy, and then nobody wants to work with each other, and there's wars, and it's a mess, man. It's a
Yeah.
mess.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of wars, you could also argue that wars are so long because of the creation of fiat currency.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Because what do they do when they're running low on money? They just print more at your expense.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you get into even the geopolitics, then you have like the International Monetary Fund, right? So the IMF or the central banks, which go out to these really, really desperate and poor countries, third world countries, and say, here's a loan for trillions of dollars, get your economy up, but now you're in debt with us and you owe us your resources, and we own your land if you don't pay this back. It's like this nasty contract that they have, and it's really really bad. It's a bad way to actually run a society, man. It's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't realize is that well, one, if we ever pay off all the debt that the world's in, or better yet, for in the United States, for example, if we were to ever pay off the debt, like our economy will collapse
Yeah, right,
because that's like literally the money because the money disappears. Like if we pay off all the debt, like all the money that we have, it just completely disappears. And also, banks banks don't want people to central banks, large banks, they don't want people to pay off their debt because banks make
right.
money from debt.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
That's how
banks
they
would, yeah,
exist. Yeah, they're a third
that's how
party
they
intermediary that charge fees to give you a service to control your currency that you've generated by working a job or somewhere else. Yeah, I mean, and there's fees associated with all of that, absolutely. And it's just, I mean, in layman's terms, it's just a really inefficient way for a business, a service, or an economy to operate. It's really
yeah
inefficient. There's a lot of
yeah
middle. There's a lot of people in the middle that are all just shaving a little bit of the services that are being provided, and yeah, there's an easier peer-to-peer way of doing things that's incredibly more efficient.
exactly. So when you look at I guess back to the previous discussion, when you look at fiat currency and then you compare it to gold and then you compare it to Bitcoin, you can kind of chart out the properties of each currency that allow it to become whatever it is in terms of a unit of account, a store of value, and a medium of exchange. So in the case of fiat currency, it's this terrible. Well, I'm not gonna. Well, yeah, it's not a good store of value compared to gold and compared to Bitcoin because fiat currency loses its value at the rate of inflation. And if you're in a country that's in the if you're in the United States, let's say you were in Argentina. So say you're in Argentina, or let's say you are in Zimbabwe, for example, it like holding your fiat currency is not a good idea because of the amount of value that it loses through things like inflation and whatnot. So that's from a store value perspective. Also, you have to understand that because of inflation, your fiat currency is not scarce. So it's typically not a good idea to store, to use it as some type of store of value. However, with gold and Bitcoin, because there's some form of scarcity, uh, you can't, a lot of people are incentivized to use it as a store of value because they know that it can withstand a test of time. Like
Mhm.
we often use the example of what like Snickers costing like 10 cents in like 1950 or something like that to like
Mhm.
$2 now. That that's a perfect example of how fiat currencies do not hold their value when you compare it to something like gold or something like Bitcoin because
Right.
it should be able to withstand the test of time to an extent. So typically people would give fiat currency a C on an A through F scale in terms of grades, whereas okay, gold would get an A, and then Bitcoin would get an A plus. So the next thing that we have, I'm clearly biased, but the next thing, I'm just kidding. The next thing we got to think about now is a medium of exchange. So, what are some qualities of a medium of exchange? They have to be portable, right? So in the case of fiat currency, for the most part, fiat currencies would get an A in terms of portability because with the whole well, actually, fiat currencies would get a B in terms of portability because if you have over $10,000, 10,000 physical dollars, and you try to bring that to another country, chances are TSA is not going to let you do that.
Mhm.
So yeah, so actually fiat currencies would get a B in terms of portability, and so that's more so a case of regulation. So because of things like regulation and stuff, fiat currencies are you're limited in terms of where you can carry them and how you can spend them and whatnot on a grand scale.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you're on some type of local level, it would get a higher grade because hey, I have these dollars, I can just go to the store and I can exchange it for whatever good I'm trying to get. But when you start adding scale to the issue, where okay, I need to move to this country or I need to send this money to somebody else's country, then you can kind of see how things kind of get difficult or things get very intricate or yeah, how there are issues. So now we talked about fiat currencies. Let's talk about gold. So gold gold gets like a B minus or a C in terms of a medium of exchange because it's very difficult to divide gold
Mm-hmm.
into small quantities. Obviously, when you're doing large payments between countries, it's relatively easy to pay with gold because you're not doing that many divisions. But if you want to divide gold down to the point where regular people like you and I would transact with gold, that kind of gets difficult because gold is difficult to divide into coins. Gold is difficult to mint. So while gold is very scarce and gold is good as a store of value, it becomes difficult to make it as a medium of exchange because of that very factor. But yet societies have figured out ways to make it mediums of exchange for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said before, if you're watching this video, be sure to hit the share button. But yeah, so now the next thing is Bitcoin. So let's look at it from a medium of exchange standpoint. Obviously when I'm talking now, I haven't brought in volatility yet. This is just from a property standpoint. So from a property standpoint, when you talk about Bitcoin, okay, so medium of exchange, I can send it anywhere because it's borderless. So it's already better than fiat currencies and it's already better than gold because as of now, all I need to do is just know the public key of who I want to send my Bitcoin to, and the Bitcoin will get sent to there. Now, from the next level, theoretically, with everything that's coming out, transaction fees are going to be lower to send Bitcoin than it will be to send fiat currencies. And an example of that would be any transaction fees or things that you have that are associated with using things like Western Union, PayPal, whatever, to send money to somewhere, or even a transaction fee. I actually find this funny. Nobody complains about transaction fees for cashier's checks, but people will complain about a $2 fee for Bitcoin. But
Yeah,
but I
that's
mean,
true.
rightfully so, because obviously people want to use these things for day-to-day transactions. So I can
Yeah.
understand it to an extent.
Yep.
But like I said before, as a medium of exchange, it's just simply better because you can send it to anywhere in the world, and no, not even anywhere in the world. I'll change it anywhere on the internet. Because who's to say we could go to the moon one day or we go to Mars one day, and the next wave of internet happens where planets get connected.
Dude, that's
Then
so true, and I haven't even thought of it
that
like
makes
that
things
yet.
interesting, right?
Yeah, it
Makes
does.
things interesting. I can
Yeah.
send it anywhere where there's internet now. So yeah, that's just some food for thought in terms of medium of exchange.
Yeah, that's a
But
good
yeah,
one.
obviously we have we have the issue of like fees and things like that. But I think with time and infrastructure being built, we will come up with solutions to make those fees to minimize those fees. And another thing too is obviously there are a whole bunch of competitors to Bitcoin and stuff like that. But as of today, the market is still banking on Bitcoin. No
Yep.
pun intended. Uh, the market is still banking on Bitcoin. The market still believes that okay, Bitcoin is number one. Until something overtakes Bitcoin, then obviously my opinions are gonna change. If consensus or the market agrees that okay, Bitcoin Cash is what we are going to decide upon, that will be the unit of account, the store of value, the medium of exchange, then my incentives are going to align with Bitcoin Cash. But as of now, the market still agrees on Bitcoin as the unit of account, store of value, medium of exchange. And also, when you take those principles and you apply it to things like smart contract platforms, they don't fit those categories, in my opinion. And well, they don't fit those categories as well as Bitcoin, in my opinion. And this is simply because of the fact that they weren't built for things like that, although they can be used for things like that. So, for example, Ethereum, for example, very good platform, smart contract platform, virtually acts as that protocol layer that lets you build applications and stuff on top of it.
Hmm.
It's meant, I think that what we're going to see in the next 10 years is, and people have already said this, these smart contract platforms are going to become the new commodities, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like oil,
absolutely.
gas, petrol, all that stuff. That's what these smart contract platforms are going to be.
Yeah.
And competition and interoperability, things like atomic swaps and all the other things that are coming out, these are going to drive prices, not prices, excuse me. These are going to drive fees on their networks down because of competitive arbitrage. Businesses haven't even really got deep into crypto yet. So when businesses start getting in, that's when we're going to start going into the trillions. So what I'm saying is businesses want to use the best smart contract platform, right? And so
Hmm.
these teams are going to work to ensure that they have the best smart contract platform with the fastest transaction times, with the lowest fees, that can do whatever they, that can do whatever they have to do. You
Yeah.
can argue some of the other things like transaction times and stuff like that, but fees is something that's really important. If I'm a business, I want to use a thing with the lowest fees and the thing that operates the fast, but I would put fees before I would put speed.
Yeah. Sure.
Um, to an extent. So
Yeah. I'm
um,
in. Yeah. I mean, I
uh,
and I'll just jump in there. I think I'm. I don't know. I know where you're coming from. I'm definitely a fan of
yeah,
speed. Because always, like my vision of cryptos is like sh you could think of as like streaming money. Something that's living and constantly moving around with
yeah.
essentially
Oh yeah,
no,
of course.
yeah, no friction, if you will. But yeah, and
Yeah,
there's definitely no shortage of people, working on improving the protocol and other layers onto the protocol, side chains, child chains, and all of these things to make it easier. I mean, making transaction fees go away, atomically swapping from one exchange, or rather from one cryptocurrency to another, with the push of a button. So there's definitely no shortage of developers on that stuff. So yeah, I mean
yeah,
it's coming.
yeah. We literally have, and then speaking of developers, when you look at Bitcoin compared to the other projects, in my opinion, it has the best developers in the world on it.
Yeah, right.
And not only does it have the best developers in the world, it has the most developers in the world, I believe. So I mean, even from like if you want to talk about infrastructure, you want to talk about improvements, the best developers in the world are on Bitcoin. If if they believe that okay, Bitcoin Cash would be the best project, or some of these other projects would be the best project, wouldn't they just migrate to? Why wouldn't they just migrate? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I mean, uh, yeah, like I was saying before, like with smart contracts, when I compare the smart contract ones to Bitcoin, Bitcoin was built to be a currency, and at the beginning of this discussion, we spoke about currencies having like trillions in market cap, hundreds of trillions of dollars in market cap.
Yep.
So because this thing was built to be a currency and not, built to be some type of smart contract platform, although there are attempts at that happening now for Bitcoin that are going to come out within this year, next year, like Rootstock, things like that. Its primary purpose is to serve as a currency. And because its primary purpose is to serve as a currency, it's competing with the other currencies for that position as a currency, in my opinion, not just like the US dollar, Chinese yuan, Korean won, and all that stuff. It's competing against like the other cryptocurrencies that are created specifically for currencies. So when I say cryptocurrencies, I'm using it specifically to refer to the ones that are designed to be some type of payment, like Litecoin and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Not like the traditional way cryptocurrencies is used to describe all crypto assets. So I'm using Ethereum and Cardano, EOS, like all those. Those are crypto assets, and cryptocurrencies would be something like Litecoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, all that stuff.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. I could agree. No doubt. Um.
Yeah. So sorry about that.
No. Go for it. Go for it.
So I didn't want to sum it up. So yeah, to sum up that little to sum up what I'm trying to say is like Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies will be in hundreds of trillions of market cap, but not the crypto assets. But that's not taken away from what they're contributing to the space and society as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I've been also, and I will admit my bias towards Ethereum. I'm a fan of contracts. For for the past few months, I've been trying to figure out how to use the programming language Solidity and understand how the development works, and launch some stuff onto the mainnet, for the sole purpose of what you just said. It's not because I know Ethereum is the end all be all answer for a ton of different utilities that are going to improve the efficiency of society, but because it's working on improving the efficiency of society. And it's going to take time. Absolutely, I agree with it. I think there's definitely a lot of scalability issues even with Ethereum. But I think this year they're coming out with what's called proof of stake. So the Casper, I think I think Casper is what's yeah, Casper's coming out, which is a proof of stake, which is going to increase scalability or help increase scalability. So like I definitely have a bias with smart contracts in Ethereum because I'm a fan of trying to find like local solutions in implementing that locally. Even literally, even if it is between me and my family. If we have a use case for it and we and it works for us, then that's great. Perfect. Cool. We've done something that works for us.
Yeah,
Yeah. So smart contracts are like super intriguing. I like
yeah.
love the
I'm
idea.
like, yeah, I like the idea of smart contracts. I like the idea of Sorry about that. And I like the idea of smart contract platforms. And I think that when I first like got into the space, I was biased towards Ethereum. I was very biased towards
Were you?
Ethereum. But
Yeah.
as I've done, yeah, oh yeah, bro, yeah, I was ridiculously biased. I was like, this is gonna crush Bitcoin, all that stuff. But like I started doing my research, and it's just funny. One of my friends told me, and this is a quote from I forget, it's a famous person. It's like if you aren't contradicting yourself at least 2 times a day, you're not learning enough. So in the
Nice.
case of in my particular case, like I came in thinking, okay, Ethereum is going to be the thing, and then my understanding of this space started to make things clear to me how I believe things would pan out in a logical sense.
Hmm.
So, like I said, a lot of people don't look at crypto assets and cryptocurrencies. A lot of people look at them as like one big thing, in my opinion. But they don't separate. They don't separate them based on classes like smart contracts versus currencies versus privacy. Oh yeah, and another big thing too, privacy. That's going to be a huge thing that we're going to see in the future. Honestly.
That's one of the things I wanted to bring up too. Was we just had this bill that had passed. I forget what it was called. Was it the omnibus? Um, Anyways, a bill that just passed, and we're talking on a political level right now. A bill that just passed the Senate. That is essentially increasing. Uh, um, um, how would you say it? I mean, there's a dumb way of saying it, but spying capabilities, spying capabilities to local law enforcement, and stuff like that. So, anyways, if you were worried about Facebook having your information and selling that data to other people so that they have an advantage, and have access to you, like there's another thing coming, especially when it comes to law enforcement and privacy. And protecting that privacy is going to be like super critical, I think, this year, 2018. So privacy coins, I think, are going to have a pretty damn good year. And like the ICO craze that we just had in 2017. I think 2018 is going to slowly transition into a privacy craze. And who knows what comes
Oh,
out of it.
a crypto witch hunt happening. I could definitely see that. But like yeah, privacy is going to be a really important thing too. And in terms of cryptocurrencies that lead the privacy space, I can definitely see Monero and Zcash definitely leading that. if I were to say which one would be more, which one would be the dominating factor, uh, someone asked a question, but yeah, if I was aware of which one would become the dominating factor, I would probably say my research is pointing towards Zcash off of the simple case of ZK Starks. And development from Monero has been kind of difficult because it's just difficult to, for whatever reason, it's just difficult to develop on Monero. I guess the way Monero is designed and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
so Monero, that's not taken away from anything like Monero is doing. I own Monero. I love Monero, but uh, from a progress standpoint, it's just been difficult to develop on top of Monero. I remember at one point Monero didn't have any type of I guess like when you wanted to send like there was no I guess equivalent to blockchain.com's user interface for trying to send Monero, if that makes sense.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was the using Monero stuff or like transacting with Monero was very cryptic, no pun intended. Um,
Nice. Yeah, okay,
but
so it lacked like literature and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and Zcash is easier to use, and ultimately like when you look at privacy, there are two things that's going to happen. A whole bunch of criminals are gonna like go into these privacy coins, and then you're going to see a whole bunch of regular people, a whole bunch of regular people who don't want to deal with the government, like you and I would go into these privacy coins, and so I'm banking on people going to the privacy coin that arguably has the best tech. And right
Hmm.
now, I think that is Zcash. But like I said before, got to contradict yourself twice a day. So it could change. But
Yeah.
based off of what I know right now, I'm leaning more towards Zcash because of the simple fact that if ZK Starks come out, it's just an improvement in like zero knowledge proofs and all that stuff. Um, it's gonna be game changing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So zero knowledge proofs is that's actually like some of the stuff like I'm just now, and all of this has been, like a huge learning experience for me. Trying to map out like economics, make sense of it, trying to map out game theory and make sense of it, trying to map out the property of money, or in exchange of value and make sense of that. But in zero case snarks is like some of the stuff that I like because I enjoy messing around with mathematics and numbers. So always try and jot down how zero proof knowledge protocols would work, and it's super cool, man. Um, and so yeah, it's like um, it's at the frontier of cryptography. Um, and there's
Yeah,
essentially there's no wiggle room in between. So a lot of like super paranoid people, and I know a few of these will say, well, will the CIA or NSA have a backdoor to these privacy coins, or these zero knowledge proofs? And there's like when you look at the mathematics, if there's no way, at least as of right now.
well,
Um,
yeah. If the CIA consists of like 10,000 cryptographers who are like Esquire PhDs, then maybe, but
yeah, right.
yeah, no, no.
Now we have to remember that the CIA was hacked. Okay, so as far as securing their own facility and institution, they kind of dropped the ball on that one. So I don't know if that was complacency or whatever else.
Yeah, the funny thing about information security is that Antonopoulos has said that like throughout the 60 years of information security, humans have never been good at it. Humans are really good at physical security, and we suck ass at um at information security.
Yeah, yeah. It's so hard, and that was like some of the path that I went through is through like the information security pathway and trying to get into the buzzword is cybersecurity, but it's some intense stuff, man. To try and make sense of it all, it's crazy. But what I was trying to say about these zero knowledge proofs is like this whole journey has just been like in I've learned a lot, and I'm still, we're still in the process of learning. We talk to each other right now, and we're learning. We're bouncing ideas off each other
Yeah,
and
like you're
perspectives.
teaching me
It's
stuff every day.
yeah, and it's fun. Like every day we learn, and I love to see people engage and chat and shit like that. Because we're not experts. We don't know everything. We don't have the answers. We're here
I
trying
don't
to research the answers and make sense of what's going on.
I don't think anyone knows everything in this space because there's
Yeah.
so many things that you have to know
Yep.
that it gets to the point where you won't even eat. Like you physically will not be able to eat.
Yep.
Like even Antonopoulos said when he started experimenting with the internet and stuff like that, like he lost 31 pounds
Yeah.
because
I remember him
he would
saying that.
not
Yeah.
he would not leave his computer for 1 second.
Yeah, I think I don't know how long he said he was like that. Maybe like 3 or 6 months that he literally like was disconnected from society.
Yeah, that's one hell of a diet.
Oh my God.
You should market that. No, I'm just kidding. But like yeah, so even to get I guess a broad understanding of cryptos, you got to know cryptography.
Hmm.
You got to computer science in particular, cryptography. You got to know finance. You have to know economics. Um, if you're trying to disrupt a particular industry, you need to know that particular industry. I know supply chain is an example of that.
Hmm.
So I guess supply chain that falls under industrial engineering. Like if you're trying to invent some type of new protocol, you need to be really really good at math. So you got to know math. Like there's literally so many fields that it's impossible, and like you have to keep up with all of this at the same time. And to an extent, when you get into things like governance, you need to know a little bit about politics and human and psychology with human nature and then game theory.
Absolutely.
Like
100%. Yep.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and so you can't like how they say jack of all trades, master of none. You can't master all of this. So I mean, what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to master one thing and then increase my knowledge in the other ones,
Right.
if that makes sense. So I have a
Absolutely.
computer science background, and on top of that, like, I took like economics and like finance classes and all that, and then I worked at the bank, so I have a decent base of knowledge compared to most people. But like I've considered going not going back to college, but like, literally like so in Austin, there's this really, really like crazy coding camp where you just program for like 14 hours a day for like 14 weeks or something like that.
Yeah, actually,
And
I want to I've been wanting to basically sign up for one and take it. So we have something here called in Boulder, Colorado, called Galvanize. And
yeah,
shout out to Galvanize. They actually like rent, not rent, but let meetups utilize their space to talk about Ethereum, Bitcoin, blockchain, research
exactly.
it. So they've been like incredibly helpful in the space. And so, anyways, they have that boot camp course. It's like a 14-week boot camp, and yeah, it's just it's nonstop trying to get you, you know, up to date with everything that's going on, and yeah, and actually applying it. Because learning and reading is one thing. I'm a fan of reading. I am. I'm a fan of learning, but then applying that knowledge in a real way, right, is like super super important too.
Oh yeah, yeah. The application of it is very important. Like
Yeah.
there are two things I've noticed. Like you can read something, you can apply something, and you can teach something.
Hmm.
But until you get to the and they're literally like levels to it. So the first level of it is reading it, so you kind of get a comprehension of it. The second level is applying it, so you understand how this thing actually works and how it does what it does. And then the third level of it is teaching it. In order to teach it, you need to have an make sure I'm not giving you the middle finger, but in order in order to teach it, you got to make sure that you have an understanding of it and you know how to apply it.
Yeah.
So I would say until you can teach this stuff, you don't know it.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. 100%, man. Um, and we've even run a meetup just to go over the basics of blockchain, just the basics of blockchain, not getting into how transactions work, and the how mining works or mining algorithms or anything like that, but just super basics of blockchain, in like its properties, and like you know the critical parts of that. So we were running a meetup to basically educate a few people there, and it was like it was pretty successful for a while, and then
until a crash happened.
until a crash happened, and then three people showed up.
Really?
Um, no, I mean it
Okay.
was like that. It was, but the crash happened around Christmas time, so it was the holidays. So I mean you could use the holidays as an excuse there. But I think,
Okay.
but I was kind of like losing motivation doing that because at least in this is like super selfish, but I'd rather be open. But um, to me, it was like it was like holding me back, right? I was spending too much time worrying about that as opposed to reading and learning about the new stuff that's coming out, trying to stay up to date. Um, so I'm like constantly trying to learn, and on top of trying to teach like this super high level of blockchain, when I'm over here reading like really deep stuff. So it was like it was getting hard to relay information at a high level.
Well, yeah, and then to be honest, one of the things you can bank on is eventually this may get to a point where you don't even need to understand how blockchain works to understand why this is important. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
like we don't need to understand. I think we spoke about this before too. Like you don't need to understand TCP/IP, DNS, IPv4,
Yeah. Yeah.
IPv6. You don't need to understand any of that. So I could picture things going the same way with this. You don't need to understand what a public key is because we're already seeing people try and create their own implementations of ways to make public keys easier to understand for people, such as some people. I think there's this thing on Ethereum where there's this Ethereum project to replace public keys with like web addresses, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's called I think it's called ENS, like
ENS,
Ethereum naming
Ethereum
system.
name service.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, there you go. So, and then
So that's
even
Web
that,
three. That's Web 3.0. So
yeah,
we're talking about that. So that's like the cool stuff that Ethereum is working on, is trying to now basically be a decentralized way of storing information,
yeah.
and being essentially the internet, a decentralized distributed internet, um, or a decentralized internet distributing information. But it's like it. Yeah, it's cool. So and that's the stuff that you know me and my girlfriend have been trying to get into, understanding how Web 3 works, and it's but it's hard, man, to get. It's
Web
brand
3.0
new.
or Web 3.js.
Web3.js, right? Yep. Um, and you know, so it's brand new to us. It's brand new to essentially everybody. But it's nice to
Yeah,
you know, try and be ahead of the curve. And you're absolutely right that you know you don't. We may come to a point where not everybody will need to understand how blockchain works. And like, there's a bit of an anecdote to that. The people that were coming to the blockchain meetup were typically software developers and computer scientists, because they were intrigued by it, right? They were intrigued by the cryptography, and you know, naturally gravitated towards it. So yeah.
yeah. And then let me rephrase what I said. In the grand scheme of things, I think we have to get to a point where people don't have to understand how blockchain works, because that goes back to mass adoption. Everyone everyone isn't going to be able to understand that, but in order for mass adoption to happen, um, that has to we have to be able to circumvent that learning curve,
Yeah, although the public is gaining knowledge on how money works, the properties of money,
which is good.
exactly, security, basic economic,
So
you know,
yes,
feasibility and its sustainability, all of those things, and I think that's important, right? So we're naturally, you know, increasing our knowledge, even if it's not at a super
yeah,
low level, but we're you know, understanding it.
exactly. Hold on one second. I gotta I'm about to share this with a friend.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, I have no idea why my entire computer is just lagging for some reason. Mm. All right, whatever. Uh, yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, you're good, man. You're good. So, what else you got, man?
What else
Anything?
do
I
I
think
have?
I touched on privacy. We think privacy is going to be big, or I think privacy is going to be big this year. Edward Snowden. So Edward Snowden came out and said
Oh
that
yeah, yeah.
yeah, Bitcoin wasn't gonna last long. Um, and I tend like who knows how far out he's actually looking into the future. But at some point you have
Well,
to agree with it.
I mean, technically, if you want to be technical,
Yeah,
he's
right,
right.
right.
But in the history of money, no money has lasted forever.
Yeah,
So if you know, I don't want to sound like a dick, but he's right in that case. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it's not gonna last forever. But I need a time frame, buddy.
Right, right.
That's, you're not communicating much.
Yeah, yep. So yeah, I mean it's definitely not anything. It's nothing to worry about. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I mean,
It's here to stay for quite a while. And obviously, like you were saying, the best developers are working on the Bitcoin protocol. Which means that they're working on the mathematics, which means they're at the frontier of cryptography, and they're I mean evolving just as anything else evolves. So um, you know, yeah, I don't think that they're gonna let it lag or fall behind.
1 second.
Yeah, you're good.
I'll let it fall or lag behind. But what I do think though is, um, as like you said before, as more people get educated in finance and money and all that stuff, what I do think is going to happen is we're going to see a large amount of people flock to privacy. In my opinion, I think
Yep.
I think realistically speaking, we could see a large amount of people flock to privacy, and we could see businesses flock to privacy maybe
Yep.
because because in this article one of the things he says that is devastating to Bitcoin is the fact that it's public. Like it's almost too public if that makes sense.
Sure. No,
You
and
know, you can see
that yeah.
transactions. You can
Yes. So
yeah.
when we talk about like nation states and governments and corporations, the last thing they want to do is give you an open ledger and be transparent about the shit that they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is something that I'm actually concerned about because you kind of like you said, corporations, governments, and all this stuff. The last thing they want is for people to know where they're spending their money at. So if we do see large businesses getting into this thing, they may not be transacting with Bitcoin after a certain point. They might be transacting with some, like I said, they might be transacting with Zcash because they don't want everyone to know their business, where their money is going, what addresses and everything is flowing to. But I recently found a contradicting, well, not contradicting, but I found an opposing point. So we have algorithms in Bitcoin that people are building, or yeah, we have algorithms in Bitcoin that people are building, such as CoinJoin, which can basically they add a layer of privacy on top of Bitcoin when transacting. So you can look this up too. Like you can look up the Samurai wallet. A
Mm-hmm.
friend actually sent this to me. So we're seeing privacy implementations or attempts to implement some layer of privacy on Bitcoin, and because of this, I have to question the fact that okay, will these privacy coins um, will they still have some massive value in the future, or will everyone just still transact with Bitcoin and just opt in to use its
Yes.
privacy feature? But then I have to ask myself the better question is, okay, businesses and criminals are going to go to what the best tech is because they want the advantage. So you kind of see that you kind of see where I'm going for what I'm going for, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
as far as I know in terms of privacy and all that stuff. ZK Starks has more or less been touted as the best algorithm, or the yeah, it's been touted as the best thing that could come out for privacy over CoinJoin and all these other attempts to create some type of privacy algorithm by PhD level people. This isn't me saying
Right.
this. This is like PhD level people I'm talking to.
Sure. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, the little bit of reading that I've done on zero knowledge proof is it has always been a very theoretic way of cryptography, but there's never been an actual application of it.
Yep,
And it is actually coming out now, and we're utilizing it for privacy. So it's like
exactly.
it's incredible though, man. It really is. So is there anything better? I don't know, but I've been slowly getting into reading Mimble Wimble. If you've
Oh
heard
man,
about that, so Mimble Wimble is also another basically algorithm um, mathematical type of way of creating privacy.
yeah, man. So like, I guess the thing is what we're seeing now is we have all these we got all these privacy algorithms
Yeah.
or all these cryptographic theories towards privacy. What we got to figure out is which one is the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
honestly that's the
Yeah.
question now. And until I see some type of research that compares all of these privacy implementations, looks at its strengths and looks at its weaknesses and ranks them overall, I don't know the answer to that question. I
Yep.
can only say what it seems like the consensus is on what's the best based upon the credited individuals that I've spoken with.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, one of the reasons why Bitcoin's kept its robustness and may feel like it's lagged behind in technology is because they actually have to test their shit. And they
Exactly.
want to test it. They want it to, remain robust and not become vulnerable. So yeah, I mean, you have all these things coming out. On top of that, you have to test it. How long do you have to test it for? And then from there try and implement it and convince. Yeah,
They're actually very conservative.
they are,
If
and
you,
from a
if you think about
technological aspect,
it, they're
absolutely.
conservative.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, I find that I think that's a good thing. You have Bitcoin is who's gained the coined the term, not coined the term, but has adopted the store value type property. It's no longer like a quick fast acting exchange, although that's changed with like the implementation of SegWit. Um,
Yeah.
but I think that's why we have Ethereum is to try and test these things. So you have Ethereum, you have all these other blockchains that are building on top of other protocols, and I think and I mean they're all really essentially in a beta phase. They're all being tested right now as we
Oh
speak.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, that's all I got, man.
Right on. Well,
Yeah.
I think that man, I think that was a good discussion, and thank you for coming back on and chatting, dude. So,
Yeah,
um,
anytime, just say when I'll be there.
yeah, no doubt. Got lots of reading to do. Have to catch up on some things. And yeah, we'll pull back together soon, man.
I don't
Definitely.
know.
So yeah, peace, everybody. Go follow Bro College Grad on Steemit. I'm Gone Rogue on Steemit. You could see it on the screen there. And yeah, hit the like button, share if you enjoy this stuff, and yeah, we'll see you guys soon. All right. All right. Take care, dude. Later, man.
See ya.